My name is Scott Stevens with Integrity Technology Solutions. I'm in the role of Chief Information Security Officer with Integrity. I've been with Integrity for 10 years. I've been in the industry. Actually, in October, I hit 40. So 40 years in the industry. Spent a number of years working for a large accounting firm. Then started with Integrity 10 years after that. So that has pretty much been my working career. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go through and talk about cybersecurity for financial professionals. A lot of this has to do with security awareness, but in my role, I have we'll call it opportunity, to see what the malicious actors are doing. I mean, even this morning, I was dealing with a malicious email message that was sent in. It came in to a bank from a business, and the tools that the malicious actors are using are so good and so believable. So really, my goal today is not to scare people. What I want to do is try to help everyone understand what the malicious actors are trying to do, common sense ways to watch what they're doing, to recognize this activity, and then having actions to take, knowing what to do. So if you have not seen malicious activity, you're going to. It's just the world that we live in. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the individual threats to security. What are the bad guys trying to get us to do? How are they doing it? Who are the bad guys? And what can we do to spot them? We'll talk then about individual security awareness. This is more the how-to and the things that you can do. And then I'd also like to spend some time just thinking about risk management within your organization, because it is a bigger picture. Each one of us have to be our own personal firewall. When you think about it from the security standpoint, Holly, we have to be right 100% of the time. The bad guy has to be right only once. So the goal today is to try to bring the water level up so that more people are thinking about security. And we will be focusing this on the financial side, on those that are in positions of paying bills, doing accounting work, payroll, because there are several threats around there. So to kind of kick it off today, let's talk about who are the threat actors. So the bad guys can really be put into two different groups. We have the cyber gangs and we have the state-sponsored groups. The cyber gangs, these are very loosely knit gangs. These groups, they spread across continents, countries, and they are loosely linked. Now, something we have seen in the previous maybe year and a half that is different, these cyber gangs are specializing. Some cyber gangs are really, really good at going out and collecting information. Other cyber gangs are really good at developing emails to try to get that initial access, that phishing email. Others are very, very good at, once initial access has been gained, being able to go laterally, collecting what information is available. So what's changed is these gangs are specializing. One group will do one thing. If they are successful, they'll throw it over the fence to another group who is good at something else, and it's allowed them to actually process more. They're able to do more malicious activity in less time. Now, the cyber gangs, they're after a quick buck. Mostly, these are the ones that are trying to go after financial gain. Now, some of the big names in this group are Lockbit, Black Cat, AlphaV, and we do pay attention to these. Actually, at Integrity, one of the roles that we have is we look at emerging threats every morning. One of our engineers starts at 6 a.m. every morning. We're looking at what are the new emerging threats? What are the things that are happening? Are there new zero-day vulnerabilities? And then we take that and go back and look across our client base to figure out if anybody may be susceptible. So that's the cyber gangs. The other group are the state-sponsored. State-sponsored are actually countries. And it's the usual list of suspects. It's going to be countries like China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and the Russian Federation. These groups aren't as much after the money. They're not looking for the quick hit. They're looking to get embedded, and they're looking for a long dwell time. They're that unintended house guest that moves in and wants to stay forever. They're typically looking to sow chaos and disruption. They're trying to steal data. China is so big on wanting to steal intellectual properties. They want to know how businesses in the US operate. So they're the ones that are trying to get in and stay in. It's real interesting. Verizon every year creates a report. It's called the Verizon DBIR. It's the Data Breach Investigative Report. This is about a 50 or 60 page, 70 page report. It used to be the cure for insomnia, but they've really gotten good at writing it so that it's frankly very comical. But this investigative report talks about the state-sponsored groups, and that the average time that the bad guy is in a network before they're found is a little over 240 days.
Oh my.
So these state-sponsored groups, they move in and they're there for 8 months before people like us even figure out that they're there. So that is something that is cause for concern. A lot of the state-sponsored groups focus on medical, energy infrastructure, and they focus on manufacturing. A lot of the manufacturing, they're looking at how does the US do manufacturing? How can we so quickly turn things around or make modifications? And so they're really trying to steal the intellectual properties. And then on the medical side, they're stealing data, lots and lots of data. But these are really the two main threat actor groups. And we do keep track of them. We try to keep an eye on what the different groups are doing so we know how to spot their activity so we can take action before they are successful. So those are the threat actor groups. If we think about what are the active threats, we do see a lot of social engineering. And I'll spend more time talking about that later in the presentation. But the bad guy is very good at manipulation. So in the security role, one of the things that is among the hardest things to do is to take the emotion out of the situation. A lot of times I get involved with businesses that have just come under attack. They've just given up information. Something has happened, and it's an emotional time. People are cranked up. They're really, they're either upset, they're embarrassed. A lot of different emotions are going on. We've got to get the emotion out of the room. The bad guys know that if they can get us emotional, just as human beings, we don't make the best decisions in the world. So when they create their phishing messages, when they call in and do social engineering over the phone, there's always something that is time bound. If you don't do it by 5 o'clock tonight, this is going to happen. Well, the reason they do that is because they know it gets our emotions up. It gets us all pumped up. Another threat that we see is domain spoofing. I'll talk about that a little more in the presentation. This is where they're using lookalike domain names, and we'll talk about email and how to potentially spot these lookalike domain names. We'll talk about man-in-the-middle proxy attacks. I dealt with one of these last week, and this has to do with phishing. So somebody will send out an email that has a phishing link, and if someone mistakenly clicks on that link, they're going to get a perfect looking Microsoft 365 login page. They're going to enter their username and password. MFA is going to pop up. It's going to prompt whether you're using the MFA app, enter a number, text, whichever method you're using, and you just authenticate like normal. But you're actually not doing it directly to Microsoft. You're going through a middle server that's controlled by the bad guys. Once you authenticate, they're able to take that session token, and then from anywhere in the world, they replay that session token, and they're logged in as the victim. So we'll look more at those man in the middles and how to protect against those. And then finally, 0-day vulnerabilities. A 0-day is what we call a vulnerability that the bad guy has found, but it's not known to the world. So they figure out that there is a bug, a flaw, some type of weakness. The bad guys will go out and they'll create a new tool set to go exploit that. And then one day when they start doing that on the internet, we call that day 0. Sometimes the vendor doesn't even know that they've got a bug. Other cases, the vendor might know, but they haven't released a patch yet. So these are the 0 days. So these 4 main areas are really the greatest active threats that we're seeing today. And we're going to talk more about how to spot these and what to do about them. So how do they leverage these? Well, email. Over 90% of all breaches start with an email message. The bad guy needs access first. And as more and more companies move to the cloud, as more and more people use Microsoft 365 or Google Apps, or your accounting system may be in a cloud, email is the easiest way for the bad guy to start the attack. They need to first gain access. So they're going to try many different methods to try to gain your username and password, your session token, and they're really looking for that authentication piece, and they need to figure out the authentication. Once they're able to get the authentication, it moves on to remote access. They'll either try to log into the account, or in some cases, they're going to try to take advantage of VPN technologies, which we will also talk about a little later in the presentation because the traditional VPNs are going away. The bad guys look at vulnerabilities. I talked about 0 days in the previous slide. These vulnerabilities are ways that the bad guys can then start moving laterally. They can gain access to a machine, and this is how they take action. This might also be how the nation state actor moves in, takes control of a machine, and tries to sit there in the background where they're perpetually there. You just don't realize it. And they're very good at using tools that are common tools. Going back 3 or 4 years ago, the bad guys would always have these custom developed tools that they would deploy. Well, we know to look for those tools now. So instead of using them, they use common things like PuTTY, like network scanners. They're the same things that you or I might use on our network. So they're trying to use the tools that are there, and that's called living off the land. And then finally, a primary threat is social media, whether it be fake sites, instant messages, malicious links. The bad guys are good at using social media, and that is oftentimes part of where they're doing social engineering. They might try to use a social media site, or they'll use that in conjunction with their social engineering. So we'll get more into tying all these things together. And then finally, I just want to talk about some advances. So we talk about email and phishing as being really the primary method for bad guys to come in. There have been a number of advances that have happened just in the past year or so. And a lot of this has to do with AI. Because of AI, malicious actors are able to write cleaner emails. No longer do we see that poorly written, poor English, I'm a Nigerian prince, I've got 17 mil, and you're my new best friend. Those don't happen anymore. Anymore, we're seeing very specific, very well-written emails, and oftentimes they're going to know something about you. And that's because of the social engineering, or that's because of the way that they can do lookups. So we just need to be aware that all of this is going on in the background, and this is what's helping those malicious actors to do what they're doing. Another point I meant to make a little bit ago about these malicious actors, I was talking about emotion and how it's so emotional for us as the victim. To them, it's just a transaction. The people that are doing this in their minds, it's really no different than if you or I go online and buy a pair of shoes. I mean, it's just a transaction. And the hackers that are doing this, that's the way they look at what they're doing. I mean, I don't know that they even get a rush out of doing it. It's they kind of look at it as that's their job. It's just transactional. So these new advances, the bad guys are able to fire out more emails. They're cleaner. They're more timely. We have seen phishing messages within minutes of some type of an event. Now, I'll just use it as an example. I have not seen messages, but for example, there was the tragic accident in Louisville with the UPS airplane yesterday. I bet within a couple minutes of that happening, malicious actors would be out there pushing fake videos of what happened as clickbait. But they can do it so much faster now. And as we talk about AI, get this advanced here, there we go. The AI generated emails, they're highly personalized. There aren't errors. There is no grammatical issues. And they also can use AI to create emails specific to the target. So AI can be used for emails. And let me give you a couple examples. I saw one that was very specific to finance, where someone had used AI to create an email chain. And I'll mess around with AI here in a little bit just to show you some things that we have seen. But what had happened was a person who was in an accounting department in a position to actually make a payment received an email that came from a supervisor in the business, someone who would be in a position to grant authority to pay a bill. This email had a really long email chain, and it was all fake. It showed someone in the business saying, "Hey, can you pay this bill?" And then the supervisor responded, "I need more information." Then there was another response, "Here's the invoice." And it was literally 5 or 6 or 7 different responses to this original, "Can you pay the bill?" And then it looked like this email chain was forwarded over to this person who was able to make the payment. Imagine if you got that message. What would you do? Are you going to take this for granted because you've got the whole email chain where you can see the supervisor approving payment, that the invoice apparently was sent in, and all of the different requirements have been met? So I just want to make you aware. I did go in at that point. I used ChatGPT and I asked it to create and I had to say, I am doing training, because it wouldn't just create it for a malicious purpose. But I asked ChatGPT to create an email chain asking for payment, and I gave it from this person to this person, and this person granted authority. And in just a split second, there was an email chain that looked perfect. I could have copied that, dropped it into an email, and away it would have gone. So AI can be used to generate emails. Another area that AI can be used is voice phishing. As we're doing this presentation, my voice will be recorded. Somebody could take this, listen to my voice, and they could mimic my voice. And I can also show you something where there was actually financial fraud. It first occurred February of this year, where a person from a multinational corporation was invited to a Zoom meeting. On the Zoom meeting were a number of other people from this company. But the thing about it, only one of the people were real, was the person that got invited to this Zoom meeting. And this person was a senior accountant that was actually in Singapore. The company is headquartered in the UK. All the other people on the call were AI images. They asked this person to make a $25 million transfer to a company that they had never done work with before. And because this person was on the call with these other people from his company, he went ahead with this $25 million payment. Gone. But I can show you, just let me pull up a different screen here real quick. I'll just show you how these voice or how an image can be used to create a talking person. You know, and you talk about the deep fakes, the videos that are fake.
Yeah.
Now, this is a legitimate product. It's in research with Microsoft. It's called Vasa 1. And I think you can see my screen here.
Yep.
So with Vasa 1, these are just examples. So what these are, there is a still photo of a person. So if you have a still photo of a person, and you'll see a lot of different still photos of people here. So what this does, and I'll move back up to the top and stop so it doesn't make you dizzy as I'm moving around the screen. You basically take a still photo, and then you can either record or put in text, which will be read. You've got the ability to control the voice to make it a high pitch, low pitch. You can have different accents. You can create different dialogues. And then it will combine this, and you will see this still photo start moving and talking. But this is what is the basis of a deepfake. So I'm just going to pick one here. This is a 15-second. It's kind of short. So there's a still photo.
Stop searching for motivation. Don't rely on motivation for anything. Why? Because motivation is fleeting. Motivation is here some days, and some days it's not. What you're looking.
So all of that movement, the eye blinking, the head turning, the nodding, and things like that, that is all AI generated from a still photo. So that kind of gives an idea of how these types of AI images could be out there. Now, today, one way to combat this, I've got my camera on and you can see me here, but if Melanie and I are talking, we both got our cameras on. Hey, Melanie, wave. AI can't do that today. It can't take commands and actually execute on those commands or nod or give me a thumbs up or anything like that. So, but that is something that it's just interesting. And if you're on a call and you're like, the shadow isn't quite right, what's going on? Hey, Scott, wave at me. It's one way.
Now we know you're not AI. That's good.
I know I'm not AI. That's right. Yeah, I would be real. Yep. So, all right, let me jump back over to here. So, voice phishing. I don't really need to talk a lot about the voice phishing, but this is something else that can be done. And now, something that I always recommend when we talk about the voice phishing or the people that are trying to make the phone calls that can be threatening. And this is something to take home also. Always hang up and call back. I'm aware of a number of situations, and I've heard of a lot of other ones, where someone, and oftentimes it's older people, will get a phone call, and it ends up a malicious actor trying to pretend to be a loved one, a grandson, a granddaughter, a daughter, a son. Anymore, they can even mimic the voice of the person, and they might be asking for money. You know, I've been in an accident, or I got swept up in something and I need money to get bailed out. Always hang up and call the person back. Don't even trust the phone number that shows up as caller ID, because I know how to fake the caller ID number too. So always hang up and call back. I mean, that is one thing to know. Another thing that we recommend, especially among family groups, is to have a family word. So let's say that lasagna was always the favorite meal. Maybe lasagna is the family word. So if I call Melanie right now and say, hey, Melanie, I'm in trouble. Can you wire money here for me? You know, and I try to make it emotional. I want Melanie to say, what's our family word? And if I can't say lasagna, guess what? It's not me. So these are just a couple things to think about. I've also got a couple businesses that have talked about this. that have even discussed within their management group having a business word and just having a specific word that, hey, if I'm on the phone or you're on the phone, or if I need payment made, I can say, hey, what's our business word? Photocopier. Okay. But something that is known but not published.
Yeah,
So that's
smart.
just something to think about. And whether you use it for family purposes, and I can't stress enough that verify and call back. And I'll give you an example on the verify and call back. I do work with the FBI on a number of occasions. Out of the blue, I get a phone call. This is, hi, Scott, or hi, Mr. Stevens, this is Special Agent, whatever, and I'm calling regarding a matter and need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what field office are you working in? Then he just kind of paused. He's like, working in Champaign. I said, okay, I'm going to hang up now. I'm going to call you back. And he just kind of chuckled. He's like, okay, I'm an extension, and gave me an extension number. I went online. I looked up the FBI field office in Champaign. I called the 217 number, and actually somebody answered the phone, and I asked for agent, gave his name, and transferred me to him, and we had a great conversation. You are not being rude if you politely tell someone, I'm going to hang up and call you back. So please use that, especially if it's somebody calling that you need to move money, or if there's ever any reason to be suspicious of the call, just offer to, hey, I'm going to hang up and call you right back. If it's a malicious actor, they're going to fight like anything to keep you on the phone, because they know once you hang up, they've lost you. So the hang up and call back is a great way to verify. Security awareness, I did want to bring up text message. There is a lot of text message phishing that goes on. We call it smishing. The technical term for text message is SMS, and that's where smishing comes from. SMS messages. I don't even have to ask anymore. I know everybody on the call has received these text messages. Just be aware that these are out there. If you ever get one and you're trying to figure out where it goes to, get a hold of me. I can show you how we can take that shortened URL and safely and securely see where it goes.
Okay.
The Illinois Tollway, that one is so good. And actually, this one typically is coming out of China. So we've noticed that that's where this one's coming from. But it is it's Illinois Toll Authority, and it's perfect. It is their website. It is their login information, and they're trying to steal your credentials. They're trying to scare you into making a payment because, you were spotted by a camera going faster than you were supposed to. And if you don't pay $150, we're taking your license away tomorrow night. Now, again, it's got that time bound. It's trying to get your emotion up. And that's why these are so successful. Another new one, just want to alert people to, are the malicious captchas. I'm sure everybody has seen these, click on every box that has a picture of a bicycle or a school bus or a bridge or a crosswalk. Bad guys are using these quite often now. And what it does is it gives people a sense of comfort. Most people, when they see a captcha, they're like, oh, this is a secure site, so I'm going to be okay entering my credentials or my personal information. So that is one of the reasons malicious actors do that. It puts us in it gives us a comfortable place. Some of the things that they're doing with these captchas, in some cases, they're trying to get you to install something on your computer. So when you see a captcha, make sure you look at the website, look up in the top, or if you're on your phone, tap on the website to make sure you are at the site that you want to be at. And if it ever asks you to copy and paste things, know that this is malicious. They will be trying to install scripts on a computer, and it is something I have seen firsthand. They're trying to steal information from a device. But when you see a CAPTCHA, that shouldn't automatically put you at ease. And I also found it interesting. Most people don't realize that CAPTCHA is actually shortened. It actually stands for a completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. So that when you see the word CAPTCHA, that's what it means. It's actually a test to tell computers and humans apart. And then finally, I got one other slide after this about just current threats. I did want to talk about email bombs. Has anybody here seen an email bomb? And that is when a user all of a sudden starts getting emails. And I mean thousands of emails all at the same time. And they're coming, many times they're coming from different stores, shopping centers, newsletters, all kinds of things. I've actually dealt with 2 of these now. When you see an email bomb, what's the first thing you want to do? I want to stop all these emails from coming in. I got to figure out what happened. Why am I subscribed to 1,000 different mailing lists? If you ever see an email bomb, it's a diversionary tactic. It means the bad guy is in, and they're trying to throw a curveball so you don't realize that the bad guy is there. So I just want to make people aware of this so that if you or any business you're working with, if somebody all of a sudden is getting thousands or even tens of thousands of email messages all at once, and they're coming from everything from Walmart to Saks Fifth Avenue to a church, and it's a newsletter. What's happened is the bad guy signed them up for an email bomb. It is always diversionary, and it means the bad guy is already logged in to the bank account. They're logged into a computer, they're remoted into a system. But just be aware, if you ever hear of or see an email bomb going on, get a hold of somebody because somebody is in somewhere. The best thing to do is to start changing passwords to get your banking account access either disabled or change your access. It just means that the bad guy's in. Okay. Well, and the email bomb, there are actually services on the dark web where the malicious actor could go in and put in my email address, sstevens@integrityts.com, and they could subscribe to 1,000 newsletters. And normally, if this happens, your best course of action is to get rid of the email address and create a new one. And I know that's a lot of work, but that is about the only way to get away from these email bombs. Once you're subscribed, there's no such thing as unsubscribing from 1,000. Now, we tried to build filters in one case. If the word unsubscribe is in the message, blow it away. Many of the sites were from Japan and Singapore and India. And the word unsubscribe is not in the email. Yeah, we get to see all kinds of things in my role.
So when do we get to use AI to fight back?
Well, we very much are. The antivirus and EDR systems that we use, we're with SentinelOne. There are a number of good products on the market, Carbon Black, CrowdStrike. These make heavy use of AI with the way they look at activity on a network. We also use a product called Blackpoint MDR. That is an AI-based product that looks for anomalous activity. It gets installed on all the computers in the organization, and it's looking for things that are anomalous. What shouldn't be happening that normally does? Once it spots that kind of activity, AI is able to spot that, track that, bring a great deal of information together quickly, and help a human make a very quick decision. So there are a number of areas where we are using AI for good, where we're able to counter these types of activities. So there are things that are happening that are on the good side. So I'd actually say there's as much happening on the good side as there are on the bad. but it's an arms race. Everybody's trying to do a little bit more or move a little bit faster. Okay, so the slide that I have up here, I want to make everyone aware of Internet of Things devices, smart devices. Smart devices have very, very dumb security. Had a situation in a regulated company, and they wanted to buy a refrigerator. They wanted to put it on the network because it had this big display screen on the front, and they wanted their corporate calendar to show up on the refrigerator. And I said, no. I said, actually, I think I said, are you crazy? The issue that we have, many of these devices have got poor security. They may have back doors. Now, there are ways that they can be implemented securely. Now, if you're one that uses home automation, always make sure you're changing default passwords and make them good. We'll talk about how to make a good password here a little later in the presentation. But we want to make sure that we're doing our best to keep these devices secure. Now, there is a standard that I expect the U.S. Department of Commerce has come out with a standard for Internet of Things devices to try to get the security up to an acceptable level. So stay tuned. I think in the shopping season this holiday, you're going to start seeing their new security medallion on Internet of Things devices, but I know that it is an initiative in the industry. There are so many devices that are insecure. Had an example where I don't remember the brand. It's something tech. It's baby monitors, but it was something like that. But the baby monitor had a little control panel on it where you could like change where the baby monitor camera was pointing. It happened to be on the same frequency as Jeeps, and you could actually use it to start a Jeep and to actually initiate the brakes.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. So
It's crazy.
we just have to, we just want to be aware of it. So, and this is for awareness. Now, we talked about the AI applications. The thing I want to stress with AI and AI applications, AI is awesome. I love AI products, and we are very much in favor of the safe and secure use of AI, but we also have to make good decisions. In a business organization, before you use an AI application, ask some questions of the company. Where does your data go? Who owns your data? Will your data be used to train their large language model? And I'll give you a quick example, and I don't mean to pick on Grammarly because it's a great product, but I had a situation with a regulated client. A couple of their employees started using Grammarly. So they downloaded Grammarly. It was the free version. They installed it on their computer, and they were letting it help them write letters and create emails. If you're using the free version, anything you type trains their large language model. And we don't want your information to be the answer to somebody else's question. Had they paid for the paid version of Grammarly, Grammarly has a SOC 2, which is the report saying that they follow good security standards. And if you use the paid version, your information is kept inside your own tenant and it is not made available to anyone else. Another example, most of us have probably messed around with OpenAI, with ChatGPT. If you use ChatGPT, please go into your settings, and there will be a setting that says, use my queries to train the large language model. Turn that off. By simply turning that off, the things you type, the things you request, will not be going to train their large language model. And in the Microsoft world, if you're using Copilot, I am a huge fan of Copilot. Microsoft has what is called the commercial data protection. If your licenses are at least, there are certain ones, but most of the good licenses are protected by commercial data protection. If you're using a browser that is logged into Microsoft, your information is not shared with anyone. It stays internal to your organization. So we just want to be thinking about this with our different AI apps. I mean, there's new AI apps on the market every day. Some of the common ones we put on the slide, but just vet them, think about it, think about where your information's at and what you're doing and what you're giving it. Super. What I'd like to do now is just talk about some common sense security awareness things in the financial role. What are things that we can be doing to protect ourselves? First one I want to talk about is passwords. And I know you've probably heard people like me talking about, you need to change or update your. Okay, here's where we're at today on passwords. Longer is better. I'm not worried about you making it overly complex to type. I don't need special characters. I don't need numbers. I just want this password to be 16 characters in length if you don't have MFA. And if you have MFA, it needs to be at least 8 characters. The thing we want to do with the passwords is we want to get them long. So how do you do that? Let's use passphrases. So for example, a chair has 4 legs. Then I'll use the number 4 for legs, and I won't count on my fingers and embarrass myself here, but you get the idea. A chair has 4 legs. How hard is that to remember? It's so easy.
Easy.
I'm looking at my desk. I see a yellow Post-it note. Yellow Post-it note. If you want to put a hyphen between post and it, you'll make it even better. But yellow Post-it note. That's a great password. And again, I don't care about the uppercase, lowercase, special numbers. Throw all that out. But we want to get these passwords pushed out so they are longer. I do want to stress we need to use different passwords at different sites. It's been a couple of years ago now, but I got a letter from a company that I buy water filters from. Dear Mr. Stevens, we're sorry to inform you, but we were hacked. The bad guy got your username and password. I didn't care because that's the only place I used the password for the water filters. I also had a situation where a business owner had given up a password, and it was a Microsoft 365 password, and that was the same password that the business owner used for QuickBooks Online.
Great.
The bad guy got the password, and when they get a username password combination, they've got a bot. It's basically a little script that tries to go out and log in to the top 20, 30, 40 sites online using that username and password combination. It tried to log into QuickBooks Online. It was successful, and they drained about $50,000 out of their account.
Oh no.
So we want to use different passwords at different sites. I am a big fan of using password managers. So there are a lot of good password managers on the market. If you're somebody in a position where you've got many passwords, more than just a couple passwords to remember, a password manager is awesome. Let's talk about password managers real quickly. And I want to draw a distinction between letting your browser manage your passwords versus you letting a password manager manage your password.
Yes, please.
So let's take a password manager. So there's a lot of good products on the market. The one that we use is 1Password. It's the number 1, PASWRD. There are other ones out there. I mean, I was a LastPass user for probably 15 years. I got real upset with them when they had their security incident, because when they had their security incident, it took them over a year to come clean about what really happened and what the implications were.
See?
So let's talk about how these work and why my password, even though I used 1Password for 15 years, they had their security incident. It didn't bother me. I was not impacted. So the way a password manager works, so we've got 4 people here on the call. So let's say that all 4 of us are using 1Password. Melanie's 1Password is in her own vault. Holly, yours is in your own vault. Lisa's is in her own vault. Mine is in my own vault.
Okay.
If a malicious actor is able to hack into 1Password, they're going to be faced with a vault for every user who uses 1Password. All of these passwords are not brought together in one big pool.
Mhm.
It's a pool of a lot of vaults.
Okay.
Every vault is salted separately, meaning there is no master key to open all of those vaults. And I've been in situations where somebody didn't provide enough information with their password manager. They forgot their password. And guess what LastPass is going to tell you to do? Sorry, create a new account.
Oh, yeah.
They're gone because we can't get to them either.
Okay.
So the problem that you have with password managers, there have been vulnerabilities inside of browsers where if a malicious actor is able to get onto your computer, into your browser, they may be able to get on into your passwords.
Yeah.
Now, this is very few and far between, but that is a legitimate vulnerability that one of the password manager companies had, and they immediately fixed it. Now, with LastPass gave up basically all of those vaults that were in the pool. Bad guy had access to all of the vaults in the pool. I know that my master password was probably 20 plus characters in length. Now, it wasn't overly complex. I'm very creative, and it was a long phrase.
Sure.
Because of the length of the password, I know they weren't going to get into my vault. I also had multi-factor authentication enabled on my vault. So they, even if they got my long password, they still weren't going to get into my vault. So even though they had a problem, I didn't lose any sleep at all because I knew that there was no way they'd get anything out of it. So the thing that the password manager does, I mean, in my position, I literally have hundreds of passwords I'm responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read my handwriting in the book if I had to write them down. Now, I'm a big fan of password managers. I also would recommend password managers in organizations. So if you have multiple people in your organization that have to log into a lot of different sites, if you've got a corporate password manager, okay, let's say I am with your organization and I'm responsible for filing payroll with the state of Illinois.
Mhm.
Something happens, I'm not able to come into the office. If you're in the administrative role, you could move my account and my password to someone else in the organization who could then do my work.
Gotcha.
That doesn't necessarily give you access to my password, but you can move the password to someone else to get access to the password, and you're not reliant on the person. Did want to talk about mobile devices. Many businesses use mobile devices for access to email. Just want to talk about how to best secure these. We do recommend people set up unlock capabilities, whether you're using biometric with a face unlock, a fingerprint. We're good with these different types. And there are also ways, if you're using things like Microsoft 365 Business Premium, where you can put controls around people coming into 365. Most businesses don't realize it, but once they give somebody a mailbox, that person can use their personal phone, set up their mailbox, and then they'd also have access to SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams on their phone. These are things that are not hard to control. Microsoft gives us tools where we can set up mobile application management policies where I can say, you can go ahead and use your personal phone, but I'm going to take away your ability to use Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive. I also can tell it that Everything has to be kept inside of a separate container on that phone, so that if someone who has it on their phone leaves the organization, I can simply delete the phone out of the organization, and it will take email off of the phone, and any files or anything that you've done with the email, it'll take that off the phone as well. It's a way to protect your information. With mobile phones, we always recommend that you only get apps from the trusted app stores. And I am also one that has very, very, very few apps on my phone. So I am not one that wants to install an app for every restaurant and every shopping center I go to. I do have the Kroger app because that's the only way I can get my deals at Kroger. But you get the idea. Let's kind of limit the use of apps. So we try to limit that. So I just consider, if people are using mobile devices at work, there are ways that we can set up controls around those, and it has to do with the kind of license you have for Microsoft. If you have Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you can control the phones. Now, if it's a business basic or business standard, you cannot control the phones. So just some things to think about. The encryption, that is something that the manufacturers are taking care of for us. Most people that have newer phones, well, for example, iPhones, the last 4 or 5 generations have been encrypted. You don't have any choice. Android, the last 2 or 3 generations have been encrypted, but it's something that we do want to see. If somebody gets access to somebody's phone, I don't want that phone to be used to exploit the business. And this is something that we talked about earlier, just talking about using the hotel wireless or using internet connections. When you're traveling, when you're working, I'm a big fan of using the hotspot off of my cell phone. I did a lot of travel in October. I was in a couple different states. When I was in the hotel room, I would connect to the hotel wireless when I was logging into Microsoft 365 and just going into SharePoint and just doing my normal work. I was okay with using the hotel wireless when I was streaming because it was late and I just was streaming and I used my computer to stream. But if I'm ever logging into my bank, if I'm going into insurance, if I'm logging into other things, or if I go to a Panera or an airport, I don't use the wireless from there. I typically am just using my hotspot off my phone. And the reason for that, your hotspot on your phone is a secure connection. At an airport, that's probably one of the last places that I would use the wireless because I've seen and I know what other people could be doing, listening and snooping and trying to figure out what's on the network. Now, in most cases, if you're at a reputable hotel, their wireless will be something you can use, but still, if I'm logging into a banking site or something like that, I connect to my hotspot and I do it that way. The last point on here talks about fake Wi-Fi networks. It is very easy for someone in a large area, like an airport, to set up a fake Wi-Fi network that spoofs the legitimate network. And if you connect to it, you're automatically going to be drawn through that network and your traffic will be visible to that hotspot. So we just want to be thinking about this when you're traveling. I think I've got a slide in here about VPNs too. We'll cover that here in a minute. MFA, suffice to say, turn it on anytime and any place you can. MFA, there's 3 main ways to prove that you are who you say you are. That's with something you know, something you have, or something you know, something you have, or something you are. So that would be like a password. Your phone would be something that you have to enter a code, and something you are would be a fingerprint or facial recognition, retina scan, or something like that, or any of that. If we can combine 2 or more of those, I can be assured that you are who you say you are. Now, this is very much a personal thing. Freeze your credit. If you haven't frozen your credit, if you haven't thought about freezing your credit, this is one of the best things that you can do. Going back personally, about 5 or 6 weeks ago, one of our owners and our chief operations officer called me and said, "Hey, Scott, is there something you aren't telling us?" And I'm like, "I don't know." "What do you mean?" And they had just gotten a unemployment claim on my behalf. And I said, "No. Is there something you aren't telling me?" The thing I want to recommend, and this is for everyone out there, freeze your credit. Please freeze your credit. Now, the inconvenience that this will be if you do freeze your credit, if you are trying to get a loan, if you are trying to change insurance, they will always want to pull a FICO score from you. So they're always trying to pull your FICO score. If you freeze your credit, they can't pull your FICO score. You can't create a new account. You can't get a new credit card. If your credit is frozen, it stops everybody from taking on new credit on your behalf.
Yeah.
Now, I've even done this with my parents who are in their 80s. My dad is a farmer, and for some reason, he wanted to go buy a tractor again, which I won't understand, but that's okay. And so he went in to buy the tractor, and he knew to say, "What credit bureau are you going to be pulling?" And they were like, "Oh, it's Experian." And he went home, and I gave him some real simple instructions, and he just went to Experian and he said, "Follow my credit for 24 hours. They pulled his credit, he got his loan, and he bought his tractor. But I would recommend everyone to freeze your credit. This is the single best thing you can do to protect against financial fraud. And again, this is personal. And everyone at Integrity has heard me beat on this and beat on this and beat on this, but it really matters. I don't know if anybody has questions around freezing your credit. You can go to all three sites, and if you're moving pretty quick, you could probably have your credit frozen at all three sites in a total of 5 minutes.
So you freeze it although nothing has happened? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
Oh, okay.
The other thing you're going to notice once you freeze your credit, you're going to stop getting junk mail.
Oh, that is awesome.
These companies make their money by selling your information.
Yeah.
When you freeze your credit, they can't sell your information anymore. So if you're one that, okay, we used to get Anderson windows, change your windows, get a new roof, and all, whatever. It stopped when we
Huh.
froze our credit, because they're buying the list from these credit bureaus because they want to know who has good credit, because those are the ones that are most apt to buy what they're selling.
So if you freeze the credit, do you get notification of that?
You see, I'm a bigger fan of freezing credit, so I don't get notification of when people are trying to hit my credit or do
I mean,
queries.
specifically, like if I were to freeze my dad's credit, would he get notification of that?
It would just be to the email address that's used to freeze the credit.
Okay.
That is it.
Okay.
So if he has an email, or if you go to Gmail and create a Gmail account on his behalf, each person that freezes their credit, so my wife and I have both frozen our credit, we share an email address at home.
Uh-huh.
We went out and got another email address, and that way one of us is frozen on the home main email, the other one is frozen on the secondary email. Each person that freezes your credit has to have your own email address.
Okay.
But it's a great thing to do, because now if somebody gets information about you, they can't open up the credit card, take the cash advance, they can't take a loan on your behalf, they can't do what the bad guys are always trying to do. It's about financial gain.
Gotcha.
Got a slide here, just talks about verify. I talked about phone call. politely tell people that you're going to call them back, hang up and call back at a known good phone number. We want to use a known good phone number. I had a situation with a large business who got an email that from one of their main business suppliers or a company they do a lot of business with. And it just said, hey, just want to put you on notice. In the next 2 weeks, we are changing banks. We will have a different bank and a different account number. And we know that you've got a process that you need to follow. So we're just putting you on notice. About a week or two later, they get another email and said, okay, we have now updated our banking. Our new banking routing number is, our new account number is, so please update your systems. This company's got a very strict policy. Don't make those changes until you call the company to confirm. So somebody picked up the phone and they called the company using the phone number from the email.
Oh,
And then they wired off $118,000
oh my goodness.
and it didn't come back.
Oh,
Known good phone number. So we want to stress known good phone number. Look it up online, look it up in your accounting system, make sure you're talking to the right place. But we always want to verify. So you'll see here as we talk about verify, 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 and also those in the accounting and finance world. The American Bankers Association has a site that I have highlighted here, routingnumber.aba.com. It's going to bring up this little box. You can either type in a routing number or you can type in a bank's name and the city, state, and zip, and they'll tell you the routing number. So if somebody says, I need to change my, if you're in a payroll role and I call you and say, hey, I changed banks, here's my new information. If you want to plug it into this, you can plug it into this. And if you find out that the bank's in Italy, it's probably a bad request.
yeah.
Just saying. I would bet that it's a bad request. All right, we'll spend just a couple minutes here. We're close to wrap this up, but I do want to just talk about risk management within businesses. Within businesses, we do recommend having multiple security controls. I'm not going to read each of these. It's kind of an eye chart, but there's a number of things that we can do to protect networks that you should be considering. Setting up multi-factor authentication where you can, scanning for vulnerabilities, knowing what is on the network. Do you know every device that's there? So this is just meant to be, there are a lot of layers, and we want to make sure we're looking at all of those layers. And a way to do that, we're a big fan of following NIST. It's National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST is the group that comes up with the security controls used by places like PCI DSS for credit card security. NIST provides the security controls for HIPAA in the healthcare world. NIST provides the security controls for Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which is security in the banking and financial sector. So NIST is really the source of how to best secure your environment. NIST has 5 main areas that they talk about with security. That's identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And if you look at the little table here, you'll see those in red across the top. If we were to apply that to the devices, the applications, the networks, the data, the users, this becomes a risk assessment. Do you know all the devices you have on the network? Do you know the applications? Do you know who you're connected to? Where is your data at? And who are your users? And then how do you protect each of those areas? And then we can go on through the continuum. Now down at the bottom, it shows that the left side of this is very technology heavy. So for example, how do you protect your network? We use a firewall. That's very technology heavy. If an event happens, that becomes very people heavy. So that line is drawn at an angle for a purpose. And then it also just illustrates that we need to have processes and procedures along the way. So this is the way that we typically look at security in organizations. And I'd encourage everybody to think about this when you consider security in your business. If we were to take this same cybersecurity matrix and drop in the products that you use, and this is something that Integrity does, we look at where do we have white spots? Where do we have boxes that don't have things in them? Do we have coverage for how do we protect or detect or respond for the different systems that are out there? So for example, your firewall. Well, network, this is where your firewall lives. If you're using an EDR product like SentinelOne or Blackpoint or any of those, they kind of take care of these top boxes. Do you do phishing tests? Do you do security awareness? Well, that's ways to identify and protect on your users. So again, this is just a method to think about security in a more global way. Now, if a malicious activity was going to happen, that's the boom. That always happens just before or in the middle of the detect component. Now, on the left side of the boom, it's our goal to keep it from happening. We want to stop the threats from happening. This is where we're trying to put in the protections to stop things from going on. On the right side of boom, and we actually call it right a boom, ROB, on the right side of the boom, we expect that something's going to happen somewhere. So how do we reduce the impact? How do we make it so that it affects as little as possible? And when we consider security in a business, these are the types of conversations that we have. All right. Well, today we've gone through and talked about individual threats that are out there, things that are happening in the finance world. We're talking about security awareness and things that you can do. And then we summed it up with a conversation around business risk management. And with that, we always say, always think before you click.